والله يدعو إلى دار السلام ويهدي من يشاء إلى صراط مستقيم.
Jealousy. Narrated Jabir ibn Atiq. The Prophet, may Allah's peace and blessings be upon him, said, "There is jealousy which Allah loves, and jealousy which Allah hates. That which Allah loves is jealousy regarding a matter of doubt, and that which Allah hates is jealousy regarding something which is not doubtful. There is pride which Allah hates, and pride which Allah loves. That which Allah loves is a man's pride when fighting and when giving sadaqah, and that which Allah hates is pride shown by oppression." The narrator Musa said, by boasting.
Assalamu alaikum and welcome to another episode of Purification of the Soul. In the last few episodes we were talking about envy, the causes of envy, the definition of envy, and inshallah in this episode we'll discuss some of the remedies for envy. First of all, let's have a recap on what is the Islamic definition of envy or hasad.
Is it the want to deprive a person of a blessing that Allah has given him?
Exactly, that's exactly right. That when a person sees a blessing that he's jealous of, and he wants the other person to be deprived of that blessing. And this is the crux of envy, or jealousy, or hasad in Islam. This type of disease, because it's so evil, deep-rooted in many different types of other diseases, and deep-rooted in sin, then this type of disease must be dealt with knowledge as well as action. So the first thing is, in terms of knowledge, one should know with certainty that envy is very harmful to the person who is envious, both in this life and in the akhirah, in the hereafter. He should know that the envy cannot harm the one who is being envied, but instead it benefits him both in this life and the akhirah. The more a person comes to this realization, the more he realizes that by being jealous of someone, he's only becoming an enemy of his own self. And this will aid him in removing this disease from himself. So he should know that he's also earning the wrath of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because envy is a sin. In reality, the envious person is angry with Allah's decree and with His division of blessings among His worshippers. In fact, the envious person has questioned the justice of Allah by detesting a particular blessing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given to someone. This is a great crime against Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So, how would we put this in light of some of our examples? In every remedy, we'd like to see practically how one could do that. So, for example, if a person was envious of another person's job or status, then this point should come into his mind. With knowledge, he should sit down, think to himself that in actuality I'm earning the wrath of Allah. I can't harm the other person with my envy. In fact, the blessing won't suddenly disappear. Rather, I'm the one who is harming himself, both in this life and the akhirah, because I'm earning the anger of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The second way that a person can remove this disease of envy is that he should know that he has also committed a crime, not only against Allah, as in the first case, but also against his brother Muslim. So he wasn't sincere towards him, and he left the way of the prophets and messengers. Why? Because the prophets and messengers would want for the ummah, for the Muslims, the best, the blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So when a person, he is envious of another Muslim, he's left the way of the prophets and messengers who would love the worshippers of Allah, and who are sincere towards them. Instead, whose path did he join? The path of shaitan. How?
Because he was the one who was envious.
Because he was the first one who was envious. So he was the first to manifest this envy. So these evil characteristics in the heart eat away the good deeds of the heart, just the way fire eats away firewood. He can also perhaps hide his envy from his brother in this life. But can he hide it from him in the akhirah? No. And this is an important point, and it's a practical way of removing envy. He should realize that, okay, I've hidden away this disease of envy against my Muslim brother. Openly, I'm not showing this envy towards him. But there's going to be a day when the person will know about this envy. I can't hide it from him on Yawm al-Qiyamah. Okay? And on that day, people are going to be in need of their good deeds. And they're going to be embarrassed of their evil deeds. Not just in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but also in front of their Muslim brothers and sisters, and in fact other people.
And you should also think that, imagine if the person in this life could see that this person has been envious towards him.
Yeah.
The person that's been envious, he'll be embarrassed of a person.
The one who has the envy.
And
Yeah,
he should know that Allah is always seeing him. Allah can see what's in his soul.
Always seeing him. That's another very good remedy. That one should realize that Allah knows what is in the hearts. So He knows about the envy of this person. And He will conceal it maybe in this life. But in the akhirah, the other people will also know about this person's envy. So it will be known on that day that he was jealous of his brother, and how he had a deep desire in his heart for the blessings that Allah gave to his brother to be removed from him. And again, you can see how this is a great practical way of removing envy. Because once he realizes this and he thinks about this, whenever envy leads him to do something, then inshallah he can calm down the burning rage inside him. The third way that he can remove himself from any kind of envy is that he should ponder over the harms of envy on a person's worldly life. So he should know that the envious person will always be in a state of grief. He will always be in a state of sadness. He will always feel pain every time he sees the one who he envies being increased in blessings. So the person will remain in this sad state, with his heart occupied with this envy, and it will only be harming his own self. In the last episode we talked about depression. Exactly, depression. So when a person, he's envious, and he's preoccupied with the object of his envy,
it may cause them a lot of depression and bad feelings inside him.
Yeah.
So it's only harming himself.
He's only harming himself. And this is the point that we want to get across. Because the logical person, the person who thinks straight, he thinks logically, he says to himself, actually, if I'm only harming myself, if I'm the enemy of my own soul, then what good is it for having this envy? What is the good of this envy? So he should convince himself of this and realize this. Have you got any examples in this light, how we could apply this?
It's in the remedies, or?
Yeah, for example, in these some of the remedies we've mentioned so far.
For example, in the examples we mentioned earlier about the workplace, then, he should realize, as he said, that is the qadr of Allah, the will of Allah, that He decides who gets these blessings.
Yeah.
And he's not deserving of this. So he should realize he's not deserving of this blessing of getting this promotion. So he should know that Allah chooses who gets this blessing.
Yes. I mean, he should, and this leads on to the next point, that he should come to a realization that when one whom he envies will not be harmed, then he's only harming himself. Because that person won't be harmed in this life or the akhirah. If he preoccupies himself in being envious of a person who has got a better house than him, then this envy will not remove that person's house from him. It won't remove it. He is burning himself up inside, but it's not going to remove, it's useless. It's not going to remove the person's house. And secondly, it's not going to, this jealousy will not magically give him a house similar to that. So you can see how useless this feeling is. And really this helps. This really helps. In anything, for example, the person's got more wealth. When a person thinks that actually it's not going to remove, my envy of that person is not going to remove him of his wealth, nor is going to increase me of my wealth, so let's not be let's not be envious of that person, but instead think about asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for similar blessings, and that's fine. There's no harm in that. There's no harm in wanting similar blessings. The other guy's got good trainers. Hey, there's no harm in wanting that and making dua to Allah for that.
Sure, it affects the society and the organization also. For example, if he's envious of his boss, then he won't work hard himself in that position either.
Yeah,
so that the boss will get the sack, or in the society he won't fulfill his part of role.
In family life, with the children envious of each other, I mean, if a person sits down and actually thinks, what is this envy achieving? It's only achieving diseases of the heart. So, for example, he's not actually getting anything out of that himself. He's actually just, he's not going to, if somebody else has got more knowledge than him, he's doing better than him in exams, for example, it's not going to help him if he is envious of the other person at all. What he should always realize, that whatever Allah has decreed will always occur. And both he and the one whom he envies will be given of blessings whatever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has written for them both. So, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has written for the other person to have a car, a nice house, a nice wife, he'll get it. If Allah hasn't written that for you, it doesn't matter how much envy you display or manifest, or that you harbor in your heart, then it's not going to achieve those things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has not decreed for you. So rather be pleased with the qadr of Allah. And this leads to the fifth remedy for envy. That he should be content with what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given to him of blessings in this world. He should ponder and enumerate his own blessings that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has bestowed upon him. And in this way, instead of occupying himself or preoccupying himself with the blessings that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given to other people, he's thinking and he's being grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the blessings that Allah gave him. Everybody can think of blessings that Allah has bestowed upon them. If they're Muslim, this is the first blessing. Allah has made us Muslims. If we've been given 2 eyes, we're able to see, we're able to hear, we're able to smell, we're able to speak, we're able to move our hands, we're able to walk. And whatever of the blessings that we have, we can always count and count and count. We can never enumerate in totality the blessings that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has bestowed over us. Inshallah, after the break, we'll go on to the remedies. We'll carry on in the remedies, inshallah. Sure. Assalamu alaikum.
Ask It is a program which aims to answer your questions about your deen, your faith, your way of life. This, of course, is Islam.
This is a totally different price, but I divided the payment over this period of time. And the seller is the person or the firm which owns the item which you're buying. In this condition, this form of business transaction is lawful.
Assalamu alaikum and welcome back. We were talking about some of the remedies for envy. And we mentioned a few of them so far. Let's have a recap of the ones we've mentioned so far.
You could say the first one was knowledge with certainty. That the envy that you have is not going to benefit you. It will not benefit you.
It's useless.
It will only further increase you in sin and depression.
Why is it useless?
Because he won't gain anything from envying someone.
In what sense, Qudwas?
That if he envies a person, it doesn't make a difference. It won't give him that blessing or take it away from the other person.
Yes, if he's envious of someone who has a car, he wants that car to be removed from that person, the blessing. It doesn't matter, that envy is not going to remove the car. And neither is it going to gain him a car, magically. It doesn't do that. Envy doesn't work in that manner. What else? So if a person, he realizes this is a remedy for envy. Yes, what else?
That he should make dua for the person, that Allah increases him in that blessing.
We're going to come to that one, inshallah. What else?
That he should be grateful.
He should be grateful and ponder over the blessings that Allah has given him.
Yeah.
And realize that Allah, if you could count the blessings of Allah, you would never be able to enumerate them. If you sat there to count them, you'll never be able to enumerate them, ever.
And this is related to another one, that he should be grateful, should accept the decree of Allah.
He should accept the decree of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That Allah is the one who's given that person this blessing, and therefore he should be happy with the decree of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The next remedy for envy is a very, very important and practical one. and that is that he should act in defiance of his own envy. So whenever his envy dictates that he should do something, he should strive against his soul and do the complete opposite. So for example, if he walks by a person who has a beautiful car, and he envies him for that car, he wants to remove that blessing, that car from that person. What could he do? He could perhaps use his ring and just scratch the whole car, okay, out of envy for that car. Okay, so when his soul tries to entice him to do this, what should he do? He should act in defiance of his soul. He should first of all realize that this is actually coming from envy. And then he should act in defiance of what envy is telling him to do. So he should refrain from acting in consequence of this envy. So he should refuse to obey his soul and scratch the car with his ring, for example. And this is maybe a common example. Let's have a few more examples like this, where one would want to do something, but he should fight his soul and do this. We should remember that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, إِنَّ الشَّيْطَانَ لَكُمْ عَدُوٌ فَاتَّخِذُوهُ عَدُوًا. The shaitan is your enemy, so take him as your enemy. If you take him as an enemy, then of course that means by acting in defiance of what shaitan is ordering you to do. In the same way here, you should take the envy as an enemy. Okay, the envious soul is like your own enemy. So when it commands you to do certain things, we should avoid it.
Yeah, for example, sometimes at university, when there's limited spaces for a certain course, and only certain students are selected for that, then if he's competing with another student, then he should, instead of being envious of that person, of getting that position, that job, or degree or whatever, then he should wish good for that person. And think.
But how would his soul? What I'm asking is, how would he act in defiance of his soul? His soul, he is envious of someone. Okay, that envy leads him to do something. You mentioned an example a while back about someone having nice hair. Okay, someone having nice hair. A person could have envy for that person, and then you said that he might, for example, shave his hair at night time. Mm-hmm. So what should he do in this scenario in light of what we've just learned?
He should remember that this is something that despised by Allah.
Yeah, and he should act in defiance of his soul. He should say, no, I'm not going to shave the guy's hair.
Okay. Try to overcome it.
He should overcome it, exactly.
And be grateful.
And be grateful to Allah.
Yeah, and change it to good actions.
Yes. So in this particular remedy, what we're concentrating on is the issue of defying, in other words, acting against, refusing to obey one's soul. Okay, so the soul says, hey, go and do this evil action. Okay, out of your envy. You say, no, I'm not going to do it. Let's have some more examples of this.
Yeah, maybe in work.
Mm-hmm.
If two employees are fighting for promotion,
mm-hmm.
and is envying someone else that have got the skills, instead of envying him, he can work on himself.
Yeah, or this envy may lead him to namima, for example. Okay, we talked about tale carrying.
Yeah.
So the envy may lead him to tale carrying, to go to the boss and say, hey, you know what he said about you, to make sure he doesn't get promotion. And of course that is haram as well. So what the person will do in light of this remedy, he will act in defiance against his soul and say, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to obey you, O soul, for this thing. And this is a remedy. This is a remedy. So if he's envious, for example, okay, and likewise he should not only do that, he should do the opposite of that. Let's take the example of the car. Okay, somebody has a car. Instead of scratching the car, maybe he should offer to wash the car on behalf of the owner. He says, hey, you're a good friend, let me wash your car today.
Be careful not to scratch it while you're washing it.
Be careful not to scratch it while he's washing it. In the same way, I mean, I wouldn't say wash someone else's hair, but I'm sure we could think of some examples after we've had a look at the interviews about this.
I think we should love things that happen to our friends and we must hope for more good things for them.
It could be removed by knowledge, because if you're more knowledgeable, you've got more general knowledge, you know some and everything, like if you're talking in religion, you'll know that envy is a bad thing. You know that envy will hurt other people, hurt you also.
Well, it depends on the issue. Envy is not an admirable feature in itself. However, knowledge is definitely power. Knowledge is something we should all seek to better the world that we live in today. Naturally, if you have a good amount of knowledge, there's no need to envy others, even if they are materially or better or in any sense better in any way. That, alhamdulillah, everything's good. We can always better ourselves through knowledge. So knowledge is the key. It supersedes money, it supersedes anything else of material value, because your head is more valuable than anything else in the world. Yes and no, it depends on the person.
If you envy someone, you will severely be punished in the afterlife. So if you really practice Islam, you will know that envying someone will harm you and harm him, the other person you are envying,
One has to exercise certain level of self-control. That's why a lot of people, that's what an addict is. It's someone who cannot exercise any level of self-control. So we as people, we have to exercise this self-control even in terms of emotions, because you can be addicted to a certain person as well. And these can create feelings such as envy and jealousy, and it allows you to harbor a lot of also negative emotions. And it's just improper. I don't think that it should be done. I think one should really be in command of their feelings, even though it's very difficult, but they should try to have a certain level of control over their feelings so they don't hurt the people around them, and they don't give the evil eye to anyone else also at the same time.
Very good, very good. Yes. So we were talking about some examples of when a person could act in defiance of his own envy. The envy tells him to do something, he's going to do the opposite. Let's have some more examples of that.
For instance, if a person who has new clothes or something like this, and the other person envies this, maybe he should offer to buy some more clothes.
Exactly, that's exactly what I wanted to hear, these kind of examples.
For instance, if the person had quite nice trainers, and another person did, then the other person can perhaps offer to buy some new trainers for the person.
Yes, that's right. So, and this totally, a person is fighting against his own soul here. Okay? He's training his soul. And this is the key. More examples of this?
Maybe in families where at home, maybe instead of envying his brother, he
buy him a gift.
Buy him a gift, or encourage him to do better.
Yeah, and speak, like when the envy tells a person, hey, speak badly about your brother to your father.
Yeah.
Okay, sibling rivalry. They're all vying for the father's love, the parent's love. What should he do? He should act against that and say, hey, Dad, my brother, he was really good today. He was really nice, kind.
Yeah.
Defy his own soul. Do the opposite of what the soul is telling him. If he's envious, for example, of someone who is being praised by the people, and his soul desires to speak against that person, then he should strive against his soul, and instead he should make good comments and compliment that person. In this way, he's training his soul to remove the envy in his heart. So when a person has broken a leg, for example, okay, and he's had it repaired, he is advised to exercise his leg, slowly but surely, training his leg to get back into shape, get back to normal. If he doesn't exercise and train his leg, then he could end up with a permanent injury. In the same way, the soul. Okay, the soul is exactly the same. It needs to be trained. It needs to be cultivated. It has to remove the diseases of the heart. Remember we said the human being is made of 3 components. What were they?
The ruh, the soul.
The ruh is one of them, the soul. The body is another.
Intellect.
And the mind, the intellect. Okay, when we see the diseases of the body, okay, someone's broken his leg, broken his arm, then we're quick to repair them. Okay? In the same way, when we have diseases of the soul, such as envy and anger and these kind of things, we have to train the soul. We have to repair it, but then train the soul to get out of these bad habits. And this is very important. So if a person's soul craves to be proud and arrogant against the one who he envies, then he should try his best and force himself to remain humble and modest in front of that person. If his soul wants to be horrible to the person he envies, he should make every effort and compel himself to be good to that person. In this way, the one whom he envies will return the kindness and modesty back to him. And this, in turn, will lead the envious person to show kindness. So it's like a circle. It is difficult not to show kindness to someone else that does show you kindness and happiness. Often one loves people who love him. So for example, I don't like that person, so I speak good about him in front of him. I act good to him. Then he, in turn, acts good to me. And this will make my soul change from the false, if you like, the false kind of being good to him, and being trained to be naturally good to him. Why? Because he's doing good to me. And I like people who do good to me. This is normal. The seventh remedy for envy is that every time the thought of envy enters his mind, he should avert it immediately and begin to think of something else. He should start to do acts of worship, like read the Qur'an or recite words of dhikr. In this way, he will preoccupy himself with acts of worship instead of his envy. The eighth remedy for envy is that he should make dua for the person that he envies. He should sit in private and ask Allah and beg Allah that He actually increases the one whom he envies with goodness. So if a person is jealous of someone who has got a lot of wealth, then he should make dua to Allah that that person is increased in wealth. This is acting totally contrary to himself, to his soul, which is telling him to do the opposite. He should force himself to do this, knowing that Allah will give to that person whatever He's already decreed, so it's not going to change anything. It is difficult to make dua for one whom a person is angry with or envious of. So by doing this, he's actually forcing the envy out of his soul. The ninth remedy is that he should take refuge in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from this disease of envy and make dua to Allah to remove him of it. So I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to aid us against this evil disease so we can struggle against it and overcome this filthy disease from our hearts. وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.